We're now recording this CHAOSS.GrimoireLab working group call on March 31st. This recording will be made available on YouTube after the call. Please go into the Google Doc that I shared in the minutes, add yourself there. And what's of interest today? So if you go in the Google Doc, I can also share my screen. Okay, so let's put together an agenda. What do we want to talk about?
We ended the Zoom meeting.
Anyone have anything they're interested in talking about today? This is an open call. There's no agenda that is predetermined, so we can shape this call into whatever you're interested in.
I guess last call, Peter was talking through a use case, right? So I see nodding. I guess one of my questions is, did that get resolution? Where are we at on that? What are the next steps?
Yes, I can report back.
Yeah.
Yes, I can report back. I downloaded 2 open source packages and ran the Perceval against those 2 packages, namely OpenSSL and Spark. And we had some questions about how to handle the data and how to extract the data from that particular project. So maybe I have some questions about that. Maybe you can give me some guidance on what to do next.
I probably can't. As a non-Perceval engineer, I probably can't, and I'm afraid we need Daniel or Santi or Valerio on the call.
Right. Yeah. I'm gonna message Valerio, see if he can join.
What were your questions, Peter? Maybe we can at least capture those for the time being.
Sure. So I'm trying to get used to this unmute business.
Yeah.
We found that a lot of so we tried we cloned the Git and we ran against the Git option, and we had a lot of data, and it was not as easy to get the specific features from that. So I was wondering, it looks like there's a next step that you put in the database or the Elasticsearch, and then you try to get some summary data out of that. I was wondering if there's like some type of the API or like RESTful API or some of the other data, summary entries after the Perceval. Is there such a place I can look into? That's one. The other things were, I see that something like OpenSSL project, there's a GitHub website, and then the Git itself, and then possibly some other Bugzilla mechanism. So I was kind of wondering if there's a way that you can, you're putting all of them into one place. Is it manual? So imagine we are splitting up. It's not just one OpenSSL project. You have like million projects. How do you go about putting Bugzilla, GitHub, Git, Pack, and the repo itself? How do you put them all into like how do you do the mapping of those different places? Is there a mechanism to do that? So that we can scale up to not just OpenSSL, Spark, but maybe like hundreds of projects and thousands of projects easily. Or is it going to be manual entry of, okay, here's the GitHub address, here's the Git address, here's the Bugzilla address, here's etc. address?
So I One moment. There are a few things that I do know, and Valerio just joined. He can probably speak more to this. For your first question of what comes after Percival, my understanding is the next step is to have Grimoire ELK project that does exactly what you're talking about. It takes the JSON produced by Percival and puts it into Elasticsearch. From there, it enriches the data by calculating metrics, by doing the things that you're asking here in step 2. Grimoire ELK. I think, Valerio, maybe you correct me. Grimoire ELK has something that is called studies, which is a way to work with the data and combine it in new ways. Valerio, can you hear me?
Yes, now yes. Yeah, I think, I mean, you gave good answers. Maybe the first one could be completed with micromortared. That is basically, it's a simple way to execute elk and perceval. Otherwise, you can just rely on the full platform. And then with respect to the other question 2, in that case, I don't understand if you are asking for a way to map all the data sources of a project and get this data, and then later on play with the data in Elasticsearch, or you are asking for something like what Georg wrote about the studies. Because in the first case, the platform Grimoire Lab as a format is basically a JSON where you can list all the data sources of a project. I'm going to share some links just to make things clear. So this one is the link to the documentation for micromortared. So you need to install basically the different components to execute micromortared, but in this case you can execute then every steps you want. So for instance, if you want to just collect the data from a Git repository, you have to just write the instruction to get the information from Git, and then you can do the same with the other backends we have. So I don't know if this is clear or not. So in the documentation, there are also the instruction for the getting started, so to install all the things needed. And it's here.
Does that help, Peter?
Yes, we will try that as the next step then. We haven't taken a look at these things carefully, so we did read the tutorial of the Grimoire Lab, and we kind of had a sense that there's a next step, and then exactly what the next steps were. We wanted to get some hints on that, so this is very helpful. Thank you, guys.
Anyway, if you want, consider to open an issue on the issue tracker in Grimoire Lab. So you report what you would like to do, and then I mean, we can help you there. Maybe it's going to be easier because we have like a set of general questions people ask when they use Grimoire Lab. So maybe we can just point you to the right place and then go faster for the things you want to collect. I'm going to share the link about the project JSON. here we have the list of data sources. I just shared in the chat. We have the list of data sources and what you have to add in the setup CFG, that is the configuration file that tells the platform where to store things. And then you have also what you have to add in the project JSON. That is the way, that is a way to tell the platform where the information should be fetched from.
So,
yes,
Peter, how were you running Percival? Were you using something like a project's JSON file, or were you typing in the command Percival and then whatever the command line was?
We were typing, or the command line interface.
Okay.
So I think, do you recommend some other way? It looks like that's one way to do it. The one that you have on the web.
Yeah, I think what Valerio is suggesting is that you create a project's JSON file where you put in what you want to analyze. So if you have AskBot, or you can have Bugzilla, or you can have somewhere is Git. Where's Git? Garrett? Git. Or you can have Git for the Git log or GitHub. And then you need, in addition to the project's JSON file where you specify what you want to analyze, you also need the setup CFG where you provide some information. So for Git, which is here, this row Git, you specify how it's going to be stored in Elasticsearch, so what the index name is. And then the studies that I was telling you about, this is calculations done on top of the data that you can enable or disable. And so by having a project's JSON, you just specify a list of all the repositories you want to analyze, or all the Bugzilla. Where was Bugzilla? I saw it here. Or all the Bugzilla locations with the necessary information to get the data. And then what you do is you use, and Valerio suggested using this micromodulet, where you then run micromodulet with the setup CFG to have all the information on how to get the data. And then, Valeria, where do you specify that you're accessing the projects?
The project JSON is defined inside the path to the project JSON is defined inside the setup CFG. So in the setup CFG, you have a link, a path, where you know where the project JSON is. I can give you an example. Yeah, 1 second.
So the place that I always go to is in GrimoireLab. When you go to default GrimoireLab settings,
Yes,
that is
perfect.
where you have a setup CFG example.
You see there is projects, there is project file. So
here.
So there is where you define, there is the link to the project JSON.
Gotcha.
So more or less this separation is done because generally in the setup CFG you can have information about the infrastructure, tokens, connection to the raw indexes and the reached indexes. In the project JSON you generally have like information that can be visible to everyone. So this separation is done for this reason.
I'm gonna put this in here. So Peter, you were asking what's the next step? And I think
Yeah, it sounds. I mean, one of the things that I noticed was that now I see that projects.json is really the map for a particular project that you want to analyze, and as far as I can tell, we have to manually specify where the Git is, where the Bugzilla is, where the GitHub the project lives, and etc. Right?
yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Got it. I wonder if you can kind of scrape the GitHub page or some other page, and then try to extract those links out of there. Because Bugzilla is kind of very likely to have the Bugzilla keyword that, some of the other projects will, like Git, it's going to have like .git, and yeah, like as you can see there, Garrett is going to have, Garrett's going to be difficult. You see where I'm trying to go here on that, or no?
What was the problem you were describing?
My goal is to, can you generate this projects.json file as automated as possible to a large degree? That's kind of where I want to go. I use this to collect and procure a lot of open source software projects. I was wondering if there is a way that we can automate some of these. Given this project, here's a Bugzilla, here's a GitHub address, here's a Git address, here's this other address. Do you see what I mean, or no?
So what kind of list do you want to give as input? What is the format? Do you have like a spreadsheet?
So that is what I'm trying to get at is that given that we have C projects in GitHub.com, how do we go about crawling it and then getting all this information is something that I'm interested in. So GitHub.com, for example, I can actually go and procure all the C projects. Yeah, and there's about 1 million of them. And yeah, exactly. C project in GitHub.com, and for these projects with yeah. Or do you guys even have that data? Do you guys have a collection of open source data? I know that you guys are building tools, but do you also have data product from these? Georgi, I don't know if you have that.
So we do not have a data about open source projects like some other platforms where you just go and they always have data available. Our Bitergia creates these tools and then provides the data for the customers, and they specify what goes into the project JSON file. And so we only collect the data for our customers. And then
I see.
for this automation part here, I see several challenges because, and I've done this for a while now, trying to understand what communities are using. And there's no convention for how they announce where they are. Some communities have a contributing website, some have a contributing markdown page, some have it on their README. They use very different locations to announce where they are and what tools they use. So if this is something that you're doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, maybe it's worthwhile discovering those patterns. So in doing this is we need to know where do communities announce what tools they use. And then this is sometimes the website, README, contributing, Markdown. Those are the common places. Does anyone else know where communities announce their platforms they use?
Sometimes they use emails, like security announcements and etc. To have like a board, they just have like a email chain and archived email address. I mean, archived email chain.
How would you
I've seen
find
that.
that email chain though?
I didn't remember exactly, but I've seen something like that. So it's been a challenge, especially what I was interested in was actually look at the security problems in the open source packages. And that security information is not kept in any standardized way. It's been a very big challenge for us to come up with the security related announcements. Sometimes they use Jira, sometimes they use Bugzilla, sometimes they use email. It wasn't really clear.
Yeah. So that's the other thing. And they probably don't have any core infrastructure initiative badge, right?
There's only a small set of projects that do.
Yeah. So if they had a badge, are you familiar with this CI best practices badge, Peter?
No, thank you for pointing. Thank you. I am not aware of this one. So it's good.
So if you go in here, they have a set of criteria, and some are around security. And I think they have a criteria also on describing their process for reporting issues and so on. So if a project has a CII badge, there might be a way for you to find out what their process is, because they have to describe it here as a best practice.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah. Sean, did you want to add something?
No. You can look at, you bet, yeah, there's a list of the projects that are badged, and there are some projects in the CHAOSS community that are badged.
We have CHAOSS projects that are badged?
Yes.
Why did I not know of this?
Probably because they're not under CHAOSS.
Augur.
Yeah.
You do have a passing badge. Excellent.
We do. We figured since we were putting risk metrics in there, we should get badged.
No, I'm happy to hear that. Excellent. So for automating how to create the projects, Jason, the steps that we discussed this, you need to have you list your GitHub project. From there, you can probably somehow find these places, like what website they have, what README they have, what contributing they have. And then you might be able to scrape any URLs they point to. And there might be URL patterns for Bugzilla, or there might be something in the link description that might help you identify those places. And then you can build your projects, Jason. But
Okay. We will try to do that, and we'll report later. I mean, it's not going to be overnight thing, but we plan to do that, and then we can share what that data looks like in the future. I think that's one of the goals that we have, and that we're willing to make that public. So I mean, we're going to use your tools too. So we will report back in the future, not next week, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be great because I don't think anyone has ever tried to do this. Valeria, do you know if anyone has done this before?
I think Black Duck has tried to do something like this. They have a project, I forgot the name of the project. Black Duck basically bought this company that did that, but it's very similar to what you guys have. Like, they got the list of authors and you know what projects they were active in. I forget the name. I'm sorry, name escapes my mind. But, I know that Black Duck bought that company and they tried to integrate it in, but it wasn't very, to be honest, insightful per se. It just was like information. Just I like what you guys are doing. You really came up with the questions and features, and then approached the other way.
Are you thinking of this Black Duck Open Hub?
Yeah, Black Duck, they have the name. You can go to the tools and see if there's one. Yeah, Discover, Track, and some of the open source. I think Olo was the name of the company. I think I was thinking of Olo. OHLOH. You see it on the side.
Yeah.
On the back.
Yes. Is that still around? Olo?
I think it kind of died out. It started a long time ago and kind of died out.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
It didn't provide a lot of insights as far as I could tell.
So looking
that's
here at this page, yeah, Olo has become Open Hub. And so, yeah, they have some data, but you're looking at the seed projects, and I assume Open Hub is more interested in the long-standing and the most popular projects. And I don't know how much data they actually track, to be honest. But yeah, they have these projects.
I reviewed their data set before, like 3 years ago. It didn't have a lot of. I didn't really like it too much, to be honest. But I don't remember the details. It's been such a long time.
Yeah. I'll put this in our minutes.
By the way, for us, we are also interested in finding popular projects and seeding the project with those popular projects. The reason is that a lot of data that we saw were, as I mentioned to you before, is almost garbage. It's like people just have a hello world. People just copy and paste some of the popular projects. So it's not the projects that we want to procure is the ones that people are really using, ones that are that we need to track and make sure that people will gain information, or projects that they'd like to know is what the projects that we want to procure in general, right? So there is some match between Open Hub versus what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Oh, one thing that I was just thinking of, just as a quick way to get metrics, have you ever looked at Cauldron? Cauldron was presented at the last CHAOSScon here. And the way it works is you basically say, analyze a project. And then it's on GitHub. I know I want to analyze the CHAOSS organization. I need to connect it with my GitHub account to give it permission. I've already done that. And it goes and finds all the repositories under GitHub CHAOSS, and it starts collecting the data. And because someone else already requested the data 24 days ago, I can immediately go and look at what data is already there. It's old data, it has to go and get new data now, but it has something. And this is, it's not building your project's JSON, but at least you get all of the git log and issue and pull request data.
Yes, I have come across this this project before, and is this project open source? I wasn't sure if this project is open source, and whether their data is something that I can access easily instead of just the UI aspect.
So the data is only available through the UI, but the project itself is open source. I think it's on GitLab. And when you go to gitlab.com/cauldron.io, this is where the source code for this website is.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But it does, so it's
easier.
It's easier to start analyzing a GitHub project. But it's limited to only GitHub issues, pull requests, git log, and GitHub and a meetup. So you cannot get Bugzilla or Stack Overflow or anything else yet.
Got it.
Where did I have here? Thanks, Venu, for posting the link in the chat. Okay, so we discussed how we can get from just using Percival to actually scaling that up by having a project JSON file where we specify all the projects we want analyzed, and how we can use Micromordred to orchestrate Percival and GrimoireElk. And GrimoireElk is the tool that takes the JSON, puts it into Elasticsearch, does calculations, and then the next step after that is to use Kibana or Kibiter to analyze and view the data. Have you, so Peter, I understand you started from the command line. Have you taken a look at the Docker solution that has all of this already integrated?
Yes, but we didn't really run the Docker solution. We'll do that as the next step. We kind of went with the Atom first, since looking at the big cloud.
Yeah. So I wrote a blog post a while ago on how to use the Docker Compose.
Okay.
Where you first check that you have everything, and then you build your project's JSON file, and then you can run Docker Compose, and you need to do some fixing, but then you get the dashboard up and running. And all you have to do at that point is build your project's JSON and do your setup. But I understand you're going from the core, from the components to fully understand the tool chain.
Yeah, we'd like to do that. So.
Yeah, I look forward to hear what you come up with, and if you find some interesting correlations or find some interesting data points that are meaningful in making your decisions.
Yeah, I'd love to share the results and keep you updated. Everything that we're going to do in terms of development with this, I will reporting back to you and then see what type of data that I get and what the data looks like. Yeah.
That would be excellent. Yeah, and then I'm just gonna say this. At some point, maybe you would be willing to come onto our CHAOSS podcast and talk about your scenario and how you're using CHAOSS for your business. Those are the kinds of stories that we're looking for and looking to tell. So I'm happy.
Sure, you can do that, but maybe hold your horses yet. We have limited resources. We're just a very small number of people with startups. So I'll do that though. I'd be interested. I think it'll be beneficial for both of us. We'd like to get our tools out there too. So yeah,
Yes.
we'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be great to elevate the story of Canvas Labs a little bit.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So we still have 20 minutes. What else is interesting? Are there any other questions or thoughts here on the call? So Valerio, I have a question for you. Are you still here?
Yes, yes.
I know you have this really pretty graphic about all the components of GrimoireLab. And I always look for it and I can never find it. Where do I go to find this? I know it's in some of the presentations that we have given, but is it anywhere on the website or in the repository or in the tutorial?
I think it's in the tutorial. I'm going to look for it. Okay, maybe you can do the tutorial.
So if I go to the tutorial, I was thinking maybe under basics, but this is not the pretty graphic here.
Wait, one second. Because I remember I submit a pull request with is dated with this image, and maybe it got like lost.
So Peter, here, if you saw this already, this is these are all the components with Percival.
Yes, that was very useful. We went over that. Me and Junia. So this was what we studied last week.
Yeah. Excellent. but there's a prettier visualization that I just can never find.
I just share the link to a pull request.
Okay.
So yes.
Oh, this is 2 years old.
Yeah. And I don't know if the SVG or yeah.
Ah, here. This is the graphic that I always look for.
Okay.
Because I think it's a nice way to show the extraction, the processing, the Grimoire Elk extraction with Crucible, and then Mordred or micro
I
Mordred.
like this a lot better. Then the project configuration file is a little more overarching. I see that. I didn't get that when I was going through the tutorial. I just kind of missed that project configuration file on the side. Now I see that that's more overarching, like the whole entire box. I like this more too. Yeah, it makes sense now. Okay.
So, Oliver, can I just merge this pull request? Do you think anyone would care?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the really last one updated. But if you want, we can actually. I mean, I think there is also another pull request with the architecture, the definition of the architecture of Grimoire Lab. Anyway, I mean, we can merge it like in the next days.
Okay, I just commented on it
Okay.
because, yeah, I would just love to have a public place that I can go to see this picture. Okay, well, I'm gonna do a last, here. I'm gonna put this, okay, well, anything else? I'm gonna do one last poll if anyone is interested in anything. Otherwise, feel free to stay on the call. In 13 minutes, we are going to have our CHAOSS weekly meeting where we just have a conversation about the whole CHAOSS project and updates from all the working groups and what's going on throughout the entire CHAOSS project, basically. And that's also the place where we can discuss more high-level things and metrics and share stories and experiences. So feel free to stay on and join us in 12 minutes. I am going to close.
I gotta go to the another meeting, but thank you guys. We'll report back next week and find out. We will try the ELK in the next step, as well as the Docker.
Excellent. Yes, thank you. I look forward to it.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yep, bye-bye. Okay, and I'm going to stop the recording and end this meeting, but feel free to stay on for the next meeting.